right here.
Hello my friends, welcome to this documentary. It is January the 7th, 2018 it is. It's where I discuss how, let's say, you might actually survive electronic MK Ultra and other types of manipulations, harassments. Nobody really explained it's why I came up with this video. Internet is flooded with complaints about electronic warfare, complaints about mind control techniques. Nobody really explains the main things about this whole thing. Okay, they don't explain anything about how you might protect yourself, how you might actually save yourself, who is targeted, why is targeted, and so on. There's a tremendously lots of paranoia that goes on, lots of fake stuff. They hide people, and most of the people, absolutely all of the people that have obtained attention from other people, let's rather say are promoted, are totally unreal people. They are by government controlled opposition. The real people, folks, don't get to say much. Maybe a video or two, maybe a few, and the next thing you see before you know is people under the bridge. The other day they reported that there's 20% more, I think, homeless over there in California and so on the streets. They don't get to say much, and I bet, just like as it was in my case, the legal assistance is totally denied to them. Police is used to act against them, not to assist them. And of course then you have that other stuff that is just as equally bad, as if not worse. I'm talking about, of course, psychiatrists, psychologists that are used to enforce witch hunting laws. If you only dare to open, if you only dare to open your mouth and mention the word MK Ultra or brain implants and stuff like that. Because you know, they have placed me into mental hospital for about 2 years and tortured me to death in there for just attempting to talk about this stuff. It was a certain time in my life, if you watch my videos, that I had to stop literally to talk about this stuff, because they would just come, as I was told, with ambulance vehicle and load me in there, and I would just again disappear. What made me really to come back to you guys is just a will that goes, I'm going to say, beyond human will. It fits into the category of, I'm not going to even say irrational, because it goes beyond pain, it goes beyond, let's say, extreme sportsmen. If any of you have tried sports and you go beyond pain and you just go, you can do that also with the mind. And that's pretty much what had me return to you guys with my videos, with my news site, and so on. Other than that, it's pretty tough. For the real people out there, it's pretty damn tough. Let's just get go with this mind manipulation, mind control techniques, electronic warfare, persecutions. I rather would refer to as government persecutions, of course, which today, as I have posted on my news site, I have classified. Number one, I have classified them into 4 categories. One category, the first category, was psychological manipulation. There are certain techniques that are used within your environment, wherever you are, that apply to you when you find yourself under, this type of pressure. Okay, obviously, what the government is going to do is it will engage your environment against you. Okay, and you're going to have, like it was in my case, you're going to have mom, dad. You will go to local psychiatrist. It might be psychiatrist or a police station. I don't really know, but it is in that area. It could be both, because both are located in the same area, where they will instruct them on, on manipulation. They will remind them, if you happen to go to MK Ultra, they will brainwash them on how to act against you, and what steps to take, what to expect next, and so on. Basically, interpretate your reality into whatever fits them, and instruct them on how to, what types of approaches to use to basically hurt you. It's called psychological manipulation, and it's actually a whole science. Usually psychologists have, or it might be even psychiatrists who have control over that area. Then you have, well, I would not say it's exclusively field of psychiatry, because I have seen psychologists in my case as well involved in it. MK Ultra manipulation. MK Ultra, I have talked about, and today specifically I'm going to explain to you also. I'm going to explain to you all 4. Basically how to see things, how to interpret things, and when it comes to psychology and psychiatric MK Ultra procedures, I'm going to give you actually solutions. I'm going to offer you 100% solutions, which can help you, which can guarantee you survival as long as you stick to them. However, to stick to them, that is actually the hardest thing. That's actually a really hard part. I mentioned to you environment previously. Well, to change environment actually is not an easy thing to do. Okay, because the third factor would be economic struggle, manipulation. That's a job market. That's basically the main issue. Your economic insecurity is the #1 instrument employed by the government against you. Governments, victims that are chosen, government victims that are chosen, I'm going to say at least in 99% are people that are economically insecure, unstable. So in the US, it's like a month-to-month rat race life, as you know. And it's so with a good reason that government has strong grip of control over the people. It's really oppressive system, to be honest. The 4th one I did not mention, that would be manipulation through the brain implants, possible brain implants. That might actually not even apply to everybody. Um, but yes, the techniques are developing and so on. Uh, what all these four have in common, however, except the fourth one, the economic struggle, I apologize to you, that they have indefinite control over, is that the three of them you can actually conquer, you can actually master them, and you can cause them, I'm going to say, considerable amount of damage with your testimonies. However, then again, there is that factor, is that possibly you can survive, and that's all depends on the courts, it depends on the legal system in your country. So far, this is really degrading behavior from the governments. As I stated, if you complain, they come to pick you up with the mental health department comes to pick you up simply, and I didn't have the right to the courts, I didn't have the right to legal system, any kind of legal assistance. No human rights organization ever assisted me. I pretty much didn't have any rights other than to die. Okay, so that's why I said possible, okay, but if anybody can offer the stuff like this, solutions to your problems, I would say the best that you can get, I believe I am. I think that I am a #1 individual in this world when it comes to these four fields. I don't think there is a single individual in the world, and believe me, I have not spoken even 50%. It's all I gave you in respect to my testimony. That's all I gave you. 50% because other 50% applies to population. I'm not going to say whom. On which also this type of stuff is conducted, but I wasn't capable to trace anything on the internet that would suggest how anybody from those countries is manipulated, is tortured with this kind of techniques. And the truth is that since I have not obtained any assistance, any support really from the people and so on, it makes me no sense to traumatize, because this is creation of the trauma to the people. When you start to talk about the stuff that it was done to you, a lot of people find this traumatic experience, because it's a lot of people that rather avoid reality than face with one. I care about these people, I dearly care about these people, and so figure out if really nothing is happening, and I'm giving the testimony, and it might help someone out there. I'm not going to mention really what country it is, what it is, and just other stuff, those 50% they have done to me, I'm just not going to talk about. Okay, so if the shit was not enough I have talked about on my news site and my videos, keep in mind there's another 50% somewhere else I will just, I'm simply going to skip. The first part I would like to touch, I'm going to go straight into the core of the problem. This is the biggest problem of all, and it's actually what the government will never ever be capable of. And that's exactly as I have suggested on my news site, they will never ever be able to mind control anybody, really. If you know the techniques like I know them, and techniques against me were employed by the top experts in all four fields, even in the field of employment, worldwide. You're talking about really American system, European system, and all systems like in Yugoslavia, communist system, and so on. When you will interact with the experts like this, leading people in this industries, and doctors and physicians and psychiatrists and so on, employment agency professionals, people that design employment market, when you will get instructions from the police, from the CIA, and presidents, future presidents like many have become, then you will know as much as I know. And it's not at all. I've gone through all 4 of them. Okay, it's really disappointing for me to see that people only complain about certain area, certain field of abuse, but they let go like all others. You know, they don't even mention anything about unemployment. They don't mention anything about, I don't know, if they go through MK Ultra, they don't talk about, they do talk about the forced brain implants, but they don't talk about really about, you know, psychological manipulation and so on. This is the stuff that is really, really disappointing. Somebody had to straighten it up and explain to people exactly, you know, what they can do, what they should do, and more importantly, how they should think, how they should pursue the reality is. Because it's a lots of stuff out there that is just designed to make people paranoid, to hide people in total paranoia. And this instrument, paranoia, the psychological manipulation, that is like, that's that, you know, that gives the government that edge, that pushes you over the edge, let's say, that takes you to the next level and deems you, classify you as mentally sick. And then you have a whole different, the whole different world opens up for you. Before you know, you're of course out of the job market, you are classified as unfit for employment and so on. You know, for them, it's the solution. It's most of the time the solution. Most of the time, it's not to get you killed, because if they would get you killed, you know, that's like a hardcore proof. That's like a proof. That's like a, people would go on and say, yeah, you killed him, this and that. But if you look at the what's happening in the pharma, in the big pharma, and then you're gonna see, wow, production of psychotropic medications and everything else is just simply exploding. So the idea here is to make people paranoid, push people over the edge, to ridicule themselves, and then suggest them basically that you say totally irrational things and stuff like this and so on. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to instill in you type of mentality that will help you, hopefully help you. And if you don't understand, I know my English is bad. If you don't understand, go over, do it again, watch again, try to understand what I'm trying to say. Sometimes I say things, my brain is very trained, because this is most of the time what I do is I think, I contemplate on how calculate these things, and so I might say things in a very sophisticated way, that sometimes you may just want to stop a little bit and think about the stuff I say, so it's going to get to you, it's going to come down to you, and then you continue. It does not make sense just to rush over the video and without understanding exactly what I'm saying. Take your time, understand, and then go to the next point. The first idea that I'm going to use is an individual, totally fake individual from Sweden. His name is Marcus Olsson. And they even refer to him, I see here, a Spaniard, journalist, like a big ass journalist with his own program on Spanish TV and so on. He refers to the guy, by the way, transmitted all over the world. The Russians transmitted the report about this guy. Everybody did. And deems to be a professional, to be #1 individual in this area. Okay, #1, this guy, his name is Marcus Olsson from Sweden, is completely fake. He is totally a government agent. Both countries, Norway and Sweden, with Germany and so on, of course, Britain, heavily involved in abductions and brain implants. Now, as you know, the Swedish and Norwegians were involved against me. They have done some Joseph Mengele stuff on me. And you have this individual here with idea, now watch this out, with idea to turn me into a neo-Nazi. In this case, however, you have an individual from Sweden who was a neo-Nazi, Marcus Olsson, but did go to the US. He traveled different countries, Switzerland, ended over there in Harvard in the US. And guess what? Obviously he did manage to gather enough attention from other students, from other people. I have people from all over the world that might have signaled to his government perhaps exactly the same type of procedure against him as they have done against, as the Swedish and Norwegians also, amongst others, have done to me. So in my case, it was, idea of these governments was well anticipated Nazism, fascism. In this case, however, you have a Nazi, you have a fascist, real fascist, neo-Nazi shit you have from Scandinavia that wandered to the US, said a little bit too much, got an attention, got a phone call from his government to go back to Sweden, where he arrived, and guess what? Seems like they have implanted him with some stuff so he could go out then and, you know, play victim. But let me tell you, when you get 30,000 applications denied, when everything is declined to you, denied to you, including government financial assistance and so on, you're talking about, in my case, since 2006, it's about 11, 12 years. When people like this want you dead, believe me, brain implants and stuff like this is just a little formality compared to what the hell you can go through, okay? So believe me, this individual, this so-called leading expert in this field, is as fake as it gets. And if you watch his, if you analyze his testimonies, which I will, I will analyze something because it just got on my nerve, because it's just a total paranoia. It's hyping people into paranoia, and it's exactly because of the people like this, you know, that they're hyped into a total paranoia. This guy is a neo-Nazi. This guy is a fascist that is literally hyping people into paranoia. He does this per government. Government cannot control your mind. It is totally impossible. In fact, I believe, and you cannot prove me wrong, government will never ever be capable to control your mind. If your mind is normal, healthy mind, one will never ever be controlled. If your mind is not normal and healthy and is controlled with this type of techniques, I deem them to be extremely primitive, then it's better, folks, for not even to exist. I'm just gonna put it this way, please. It's maybe a little bit rough, sounds maybe a little bit rough, but it makes sense. If you leave free, this is my motto, or don't leave at all. It's just simple. Before I go into that stuff, I'm gonna put it this way. You are mind controlled like in everything else. Like if you get in love or whatever the hell you do out there, you are just as mind controlled as much as you allow anyone to mind control you. If you allow your girlfriend to mind control you, it might be nice, it might be pleasant. So be it. It's okay because you like it. But if you get into this type of situation, and you allow them to manipulate you like this, also so be it. This is your deal. I'm offering you here solutions that you can use, but if you like to be that way, then so be it. A lot of people that are placed on disabilities, actually there's a lot of people that can't wait to be placed on disabilities. As I have earlier mentioned, economic struggle and so on. They can't wait. They're placed on this economic disability status, and they are happy as clowns. I've seen happy as clowns to eat those pills. It doesn't bother them to have, I don't know, totally dysfunctional life not worthy of a human being, but it's many people like this, and they don't even go through 3% of what I have gone through. Okay? So you are mind controlled as much as you want to be mind controlled. If you don't want to be mind controlled, primarily you have to change your lifestyle. I've seen video about individual, really as an expert, who gives excellent advice on the psychological portion of manipulation. He well breaks techniques of mental manipulation and mentions, foremost, none of us wants to be wants to avoid being mentally manipulated. Well, the foremost, when you find yourself in this type of situation, under this type of persecution, you cannot avoid this. It's not avoidable because your environment is controlled. Remember, you are pushed into a certain environment, and if you change that environment, they will quickly adjust to whatever your new environment is. Apartment market, lodging in the US is totally controlled, and I bet in other places worldwide too. Government totally have control over the Craigslist, over listings, real estate listings online, and of course job market and everything else. So whatever the hell you're going to go, there's a great chance that you're going to get into that same type of environment. Not to mention that if you're financially sustainable, self-sustainable, that's pretty much is going to be impossible. That's basically under the bridge and so on. But most of these people, that is the goal again. Most of these people under the bridge, on the streets, sooner or later they meet their end in the field of psychiatry and so on. They're assisted and so on. That's exactly what government wants. Okay, so let's go to the business. And folks, I am the expert #1 in this world. I do know more about any of these fields than what professional physicians, psychiatrists, and even neuroscientists know about it. Because guess what? I have gone through what nobody did, and I started with psychology. It was my special interest, the field of hypnosis, already in the 6th grade of elementary school. That's when I started to read the books about psychology and so on. So I had a little, how they say in the US, head start when they started to engage against me with MK Ultra, and it's probably what saved my life actually, because I pretty much knew what subconscious is, how it operates and so on. You cannot hypnotize just anybody. There are just certain people that you can hypnotize. People that don't have a mental strength. They were not capable to ever to hypnotize me under no circumstances, and they tried time and time and time again to hypnotize me. It never worked. But because they were not capable to hypnotize me, that did not prevented them to drug me up and enter the field of subconscious in my mind. So regardless of how your mind is strong, they still hack you, they still hack your brain. And there also are certain techniques, from chemicals to to other techniques that can also soften your frontal cortex. That's where you form your judgments and so on, and they can manipulate you. But that's already physical damage, harm, which if it's done to you, number one, you cannot prevent one if they want to do one to you. And number two, when it is done to you, if it's done, most likely it's not curable. This is, that's why I said before, possibly. Okay, you can save yourself, survive, or something like that. So I'm not going to go into that. If the government is violent, to that degree, we should just, call it quit. There's nothing much you can do. Let's go to the promised land. Let's start first off with brain implants, and also with what they're going to touch is also first related field MK Ultra. Okay, what Marcus just indicated is a liar. It's two things that I'm going to prove immediately before we're going to even move anywhere else forward with it. Is the way to, number one, what he suggested is like a total paranoia. Now, the paranoia is a mental condition that is upgrading itself. Okay, it's the way of life. It's the type of circumstances you are placed in. Numerous things that are used to grow paranoia in an individual. It's like almost growing a plant or something like this. Okay, I will point you out how to actually regress one, how to remove one from your system in case you are suffering from one. This individual suggests that he actually conversed with them. They actually commented, his thoughts and stuff like this. He would even know what time it was without watching, without even looking at his watch and stuff like this.
Radio stimulation of brave bulls, produced by Dr. Jose M.R. Delgado, Yale University School of Medicine. This is a pilot study to demonstrate the implantation of electrodes into the brain of brave bulls and to show some modifications of behavior induced by telecommand. The surgery is then begun. The head of the bull is draped and the skull trephined for the introduction of assemblies of electrodes into the depth of the brain. Electrodes are ready for the beginning of the experiments. Now, the bull is being radiostimulated in the caudate nucleus, forcing him to turn to the right. The animal faces the investigator and stimulations turn him away. The bull charges, and now radio stimulation is applied. The thalamus is stimulated now, inducing calling moves, raising of muscle, and slight twisting of the head. A different point located in the caudate nucleus is radio stimulated now, forcing the animal to turn to his right and blocking his attempts to attack the investigator. Stimulated while charging the cape, the bull is easily diverted to the right. Spontaneous aggressiveness is tested once more. This is a different bull, also under radio control, to demonstrate that excitation of the right internal capsule produces continuous circling to the left. Circling persists as long as stimulation is applied.
Well, here's the deal. Jose Delgado was a pioneer in the field of the brain implants, because this is obviously what he is suggesting here. Brain implanted victim individual. And Jose Delgado did arrived with its research, I'm not going to say as far as possibly that research could go in the field of brain implants, not at all, but he did, hit into the wall. He did hit into the limits of, this type of procedures that can be conducted on human. He was capable to perform, in continuation, I will play a video. He was capable to perform on a bull certain desired outcomes. Okay, he would make a bull turn whichever way he would want him to turn. He was able to paralyze bull. Obviously, he was physically affecting bull. Okay. There were some other researches that were done also, that is documented in the U.S. on how, certain portion of the brain, they have investigated where information is stored, and by, obtaining control over certain areas of the brain, certain reactions in human being could be triggered.
Bob, what does brain research now tell us? Things like consciousness and emotions and appetite.
Eric, we're a long way from anything like complete answers to questions like this, but the answers will come. I'd like to tell you something that we know about two parts of the brain, the cortex on the surface and the brain stem down here. This folded sheet of tissue here is called the cortex. We know that it relates to our motor and sensory systems. Specific areas of it relate to our body movements, our speech, our sight, and our ability to hear. Ed has implanted electrodes in several different locations in the cat's brain.
Bob, I'd wake up too if you sent an electric current through my head.
No, you wouldn't, Eric. It would depend entirely on what part of the brain was activated. Now the cat's gone back to sleep again, Ed, would you use another electrode in the cat's head to stimulate another region? You see, the cat doesn't wake up.
As soon as we stimulate this cat's brain, it starts to drink. One side. You see? He licks the floor. The rat goes through the door to get the food. So, it's not an automatic action. This. Here's a well-fed rat drinking from a water tube. If we stimulate his brain, and if that activates only general arousal, this rat will just drink faster. Let's watch. You see, he leaves the water and he goes to the food. This certainly demonstrates that stimulation of this part of the brain does arouse a specific drive, which apparently is hunger. He lurches away from his food. But is he really frightened? No. He goes right back to his food after each stimulation. After just one small stimulation, you can see how reluctant he is to go back to his food. He is extremely reluctant.
Okay, there are two issues here. Number one, first, as Marcus states, they started to comment my thoughts. Well, I'm going to tell you something. It's a total paranoia. There really is nobody that can read your thoughts. You understand that? There is absolutely nobody in this world that actually can read your thoughts. Your brain cannot communicate with, like, telepathic way with any other brain out there. There is no technology like this. Okay, so this is a total paranoia. Now, but there is something else that is out there, and it exploded throughout the Western society, entire Western society, maybe also Eastern society. We don't know much about Eastern society because there isn't much published, you know. But I'm talking about MK Ultra, obviously. And when MK Ultra is utilized, if you heard the term slipper, people are brainwashed over extended period of time, over years, on different kind of issues, and then those issues they are brainwashed with are triggered through different kind of circumstances. It could be through the internet, it could be through the newspaper, it could be through the telephone call, it could be, you know, Manchurian candidates, million things. And what happens is when that kind of news is triggered in an individual sees, oftentimes with people, they see distorted reality. They see the way MK Ultra professionals, brainwashers, have instructed them to see reality as, therefore distorted. That's the idea about the MK Ultra, is to gradually distort reality till individual becomes, I don't know, either paranoid or does some kind of commits some kind of violent, you know, crime, something, and so on and so on and so on. Million things why it's used. Obviously to control people, okay? So now Marcus is already inciting in paranoia. He does not waste time. He starts immediately suggesting totally irrational, stupid stuff, because there is a lot of people out there, as I have suggested, that are subjected to MK Ultra. Okay, and what he does is he immediately is used now as an instrument to relate to these people and start to hype them. You know, that there is actually such a thing that your brain can communicate with somebody else, that somebody's making comments on your thoughts and stuff like this. This is called insanity. And throughout this process, I will attempt to liberate you from this insanity. But this is a way of life which you will have to utilize, stick to religiously to liberate yourself if you, in case you were a victim of MK Ultra. Okay. The next thing Marcus does, he makes a comment on how they would tell him what time it was and stuff like this. He would know what time it was before he would even observe his watch. When we are born to this world, we have no clue what time is. Okay, I believe that biologically that we are built in such a way that we somehow act biologically according to the day and night, that we have our needs like this, that even without, you know, watches and stuff like this, we would kind of know really what time it is and so on, at least approximately, because humans were a very long time, you gotta understand, they were without watches. Okay, so watch is something that we learn in continuation. When we come to this world and so on, that's when we learn about, you know, what watch is and so on. Stuff like this. This is how we learn about it. Now, however, there is possibility, okay, since we do regularly exercise, you know, that, you know, we learn necessity to obtain information. So therefore, there might be a place stored, a portion of the brain where this kind of information is also stored, which, however, could be triggered with a push of the button. So an individual would have urge to, you know, to know what time it is. But listen, we're talking about many different issues here. Okay, if I push the button and I create urge in you for you to know what time it is, well, what's going to happen is you're gonna rush to your watch and look what time it is. I mean, this is one of the things. Also, it does not take long for you to see what time it is. And so now he suggests that he actually had the conversations with them already, because he said they would also tell him what time it is. He would know what time it was even before he would watch. He would look at his watch. Okay, so now he took his paranoia, okay, his commenting on thoughts, as he referred to us, he took now to the next level. He is now, Marcus Olson is obviously communicating with his people, okay? He's got somebody somewhere with whom he is telepathically communicating. He is, somebody squeezes the button, Olson becomes curious about it. Olson becomes curious about it, because there is no other way you could explain possibly this. If you want to know the time, the way he explains here, it's because it would be the same reaction triggered in his head as it was, as I mentioned, with the rats, with Bull, and so on. So he's obviously communicating with somebody, more than just communicating, or I should say more than somebody's just clicking the button and urging him to see what time it is. Awake curiosity about the time. He is actually communicating with somebody, because somebody tells him what time it is. You know, somebody clicks the button and you are like, I need to know what time it is, and all of a sudden the voice comes. It says, Marcus Olson, it is 4:30. It's insane. Now, there are systems out there that can be used to project the voice to an individual. Make no mistake about that. They exist. Well, let's see here first what psychiatrists use to basically... I think it's a bunch of lies. They do have a little point in it, but most of it it's lie because of this. Let's see what they have to say. This is a classic production of psychiatric profession.
That are out of your control. Psychologist Julian Jaynes proposed a theory that, not so long ago, all humans heard voices, created internally from the right hemisphere of the brain, but perceived as external from the left hemisphere. As a result, these voices were perceived as communication from the gods. But around 1000 BC, with the rise of modern consciousness, these voices became recognized as our own. Some psychiatrists believe that the brains of schizophrenic people may revert to this state and not recognize some of their thoughts as their own.
I'm going to put it this way. People that are not capable to recognize thoughts of their own with external voices are really people that are in trouble. But if this would be possible, right? If something like this would have been possible, no animal out there could possibly survive, because you know, they could not run from the predators. They would be eaten, because they would be mad. And in fact, if you go today to Africa, or you go to jungle, to some remote place, you will find people that will fit description 1000 before the century, but none of them really have this here. I should say inability to recognize the inner voices from exterior, voices from the outside, right? So it's just the psychiatrists came up with excuse bullshit with their own version on how to convince people how there actually is such thing as schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a production of the stuff I talk about today. Otherwise, it almost does not exist unless you were born with some sort of individual was born with some sort of physical deficiency problem. It also would appear schizophrenia if individual would go on drugs, do a lot of drugs, maybe alcohol, but drugs will produce this kind of stuff. Other than that, I don't actually see how schizophrenia could be produced. Maybe extremely harsh circumstances or something like this. Unbearable torture circumstances, something like this. But this would have to be really extensive torture that it would produce something like this. I would also say in respect to hearing voices, yes, there is such technology. Actually, there are technologies, such technologies, okay? You have a voice-to-school technology, different kind of technologies, I believe, even different technologies than what is written here. Actually, videoed here.
Personal interview with the filmmakers. He declined to have his voice or image recorded, stating that the technology was still too controversial.
In ordinary sound perception, sound that goes into the ear canal gets amplified by the small bones in the middle ear and then gets to the inner ear where the cochlea resides, and in the cochlea is converted to electrical impulse. But fundamentally, the physical phenomenon that enables it is mechanical movement of particles. So the mechanical wave transmitted by the bones of the middle ear gets converted at the inner ear into the electrical impulses.
You hear this.
But in the case of a microwave, the auditory effect is the source is electromagnetic. So if you expose the biological tissue to a pulse of microwave energy, the tissue expands and induces a vibration. Instead of going through the middle ear, the microwave-induced vibration gets propagated to the inner ear directly, and at the inner ear is converted to electrical impulses again. And in this case, a vibration in the human tissue.
I'm going to repeat this to you. Let's do it again.
The inner ear directly, and at the inner ear is converted to electrical impulses again.
That's exactly what you will hear if you would happen to have, if you would be attacked through the, actually attacked. There's nothing really they can do to you. I'm going to repeat to you. There's no way they can possibly do anything to you. But if they would project to you the voice, it would be projected exactly what you have heard on a very low frequency, low volume, rather low volume, okay? You absolutely would be capable to recognize, I should say, discern between that kind of voice, between external voice, between your internal thoughts. There's no way you possibly could mistaken for any of it. Okay? There's just no way. Now, there are people who, like this lady here, complain about having permanent voice in their heads.
4 years, and not once have any of my voices stopped.
Okay, I'm going to explain to you what this is. This is actually physical damage, a permanent damage that was, in my opinion, that was caused to this lady. The area, the sound, the auditory area of the brain must be damaged, in my opinion, in a physical way. It must be affected in a physical way. So now the lady is, you know, as if you would be subjected for a very long period of time to electronic voice torture or something like this, and you would get like physically injured, that portion, that area of the brain area. Probably individual then would, I would say, suffer permanently, would develop like a permanent damage, auditory damage in his brain. Now, that would be possible. The only possible modification, manipulation that government could do is basically they could use like a very, very low volume voice with prior injury of your brainwashing, maybe some sort of injury of your audible area, so that they would project voice in your head at very, very, very low volume, and you now, as a result of this very extremely low volume, you would not be capable to discern between, let's say, your thoughts. This is just theoretically, between your thoughts and external voice. The voice will be talking to you, but then again, this is totally impossible. Like I said, we are computers. We are the most sophisticated computer there is in the world. There is no computer as sophisticated as our brain. We are natural hunters. We were built to hunt. This is what we have in our genes. Is there any other explanation for possible voices in the head? Stuff that lady have mentioned. Maybe, theoretically, maybe there is. But I don't actually believe this is visible. I don't think that can be actually done. Yeah, if you would have implanted individual in an audible area of brain with a device which would be, let's just suppose it would look like a radio. It would be just small. That means it would be a receiver and transmitter, right? You understand that? Something that would receive, let's say, a radio signal and would be able to transmit one to the audible area into the brain. That means it would detect radio waves and it would decode them and transmit them into the brain. Something like this would be possible, but like I said, you know, this is all theoretical. And of course, then you would have like some sort of I'm not going to say radio station, but radio channels through which you would transmit these voices, and only then certain people would be able to hear them. I don't think, however, that type of technology exists. I don't believe that type of technology is possible. Okay, but theoretically, that would be basically the only other explanation, which I don't think exists. If individuals have this kind of problems, if he is experiencing voices, most likely that is due to maybe marijuana, maybe some other drugs that individual have used. Who knows what type of substances abuse he have done. There are plenty of drugs out there. Who knows? There might be drugs that can actually cause this type of injury to an individual if they're mixed in cocktails and food or something like this. You never know. Okay, but you know, when people say that just go permanently on this type of hearing, I got to say it's the best to seek professionals' help. Now listen to me very carefully, folks. It's why I took so much time in respect to this subject. Okay, I was twice hospitalized, as I have mentioned. Almost 2 years. They tortured me to death, to the brink of the death. 3 times I almost died due to over medications over there. Stuff they have engaged against me is almost impossible to describe. But as I have stated, I could not even move my jaws. I could barely walk. This is how much they have medicated me, and I would sleep days straight. Would not even go to eat anymore. I was ready to go.